Welcome to yet another edition of Planet Waves TV. My name is Eric Francis, the editor of Planet Waves and the host of Planet Waves FM, here today to talk about the Aries New Moon. That takes place Thursday the 7th of April, so that's in a few days, but we have a really interesting kind of run of events leading up to the new moon. So this is a good time to preview it. And besides, it's the next big thing after this edition comes out. So let's consider first what the new moon is. Once a month, the moon basically passes in between the sun and the earth. And that's the new moon. It's a dependable cycle. It comes back every month. It's amazing that women's bodies are tuned to this cycle. I mean, say what you want about astrology, but we have one very blatantly obvious connection between the human realm and the so-called celestial realm, which is that the hormonal cycle of the bodies of women who you might be or who live among you are timed to the moon. I personally think that's incredible, and I think that we could learn a lot from that. And I wonder what the counterpart is in men, because there's likely to be one somewhere, right? So one thing about the new moon and the full moon, that is to say about tracking lunar cycles at all, is there a really good way to get the feel for astrology. Astrology is often taught as some kind of an intellectual pursuit. As you can see, I have an impressive book collection and actually have three more book collections. So there is definitely something intellectual about astrology because you can just fill so many books with it. However, at the end of the day, the real astrology is done by feeling. So all the concepts in the world do not add up to astrology that makes any sense at all. What has to happen is that something has to be filtered through your body, filtered through your emotions, and then somehow expressed to another human being in a form that they can understand it. And it is that feeling for things, what Barbara Hand-Clow calls aspect sensitivity. I love that term. I picked up a few really good pointers from Barbara. And one of them is this concept of aspect sensitivity, which is to say you look at an aspect in a chart, and instead of intellectualizing it, you feel how you feel in your body about that. And you notice what your body is doing, and you notice what your emotions are doing. And then you let that percolate through language. Rather than working from the head down, you work from the body up, and then you express it into, for example, YouTube. And one of the best ways to get the feeling for astrology is to follow the lunar cycle. If you only start with 2 events a month, full moon, new moon, full moon, new moon, and just feel that cycle playing itself out as it does in life, you will get the feeling for astrology. And then what you learn about the lunar cycle, you can then transfer onto many other planetary cycles, many other types of planetary events. So it's well worth doing. It's worth getting one of those pocket astrology calendars or some app on your phone that tells you where the moon is. And then once you've got the hang of the full moon and the new moon, which will probably take anywhere from you already have it to a couple of weeks, a couple of months, since it is months we're talking about, then the moon through the signs makes more sense and you start to notice things. And so if you're intimidated by the idea that astrology requires so much knowledge and that there seem to be so many opinions that people have and ancient medieval formulas for making magic wands and turning people into frogs, try following the new moon and the full moon and hanging out with them and seeing what your body says about how you feel about these events. Notice what your mind is doing. Notice what opens up for you. Notice the way your relationships go without having to apply any theory at all. I'm one of these teachers who believes that experience matters a lot. Unlike certain teachers I respect a lot who believe it all must come from theory, I say keep it on the planet. So let's look at this particular new moon. Let's look at a chart for it. First I've got a nice simplified chart. So let's see how I'm doing here with organizing the visual field of the frame. Let's see, the frame is like, where's the frame? There it is. Oh, everything's backwards. That's freaky. Okay, so here is the new moon. The way you can see that it's the new moon in a chart is because the sun, which looks like the sun, and the moon, which looks like the moon, a little bit anyway, have the same number value. 18 degrees of Aries and 4 arc minutes. An arc minute is a division of a degree by 60, and a degree is a division of a sign, and a sign is a division of the whole wheel. There's 21,600 arc minutes, I believe, and there's 360 degrees, and there's 12 signs. So you can see this is an exact alignment of the sun and the moon, and it's relevant just as such. It's a conjunction, it's the ending of a cycle, it's the beginning of a cycle. Every new moon has a little bit different flavor. It has a little bit of a different visual pattern, and that will translate to a little bit different sensation, right? So what defines this is, first of all, that it is close to these planets. Let's start with the conjunction first. So as part of the conjunction, the full moon, new moon is conjunct Uranus, and it's conjunct Eris. We've been talking a lot about the Uranus-Eris conjunction, and now we have a new moon super close to the Uranus-Eris conjunction. That is to say, just slightly over 2 degrees away from Uranus. That's pretty close. And then right next is little Miss Eris, bazillion miles away from us. Uranus is like going over to the mall, and Eris is like really, the equivalent of going to Australia by rowboat, basically. So we have a new moon conjunct Uranus-Eris, and we're in this era of the Uranus-Eris conjunction. It's a big time. It's a epic conjunction because it is one of those things that, first of all, doesn't happen very often, and because as you can feel from the world has a lot of this kind of rebellious, restless, erratic, somewhat cranky, inventive, exciting, technologically driven, somewhat glamour driven. That could be Uranus and Aries also. Energy going on, and Eris represents a stratum of kind of complete inexplicable chaos. Now, these things have more sublime meanings than that, and we take them as psychological astrology. Not enough to do in a video, inappropriate for a video, but in the last Planet Waves FM, and in the most recent issue of Planet Waves, the written publication that comes out, that should still be on the website. I've got some reader comments about the Uranus-Eris conjunction, and by comments I mean essays that I republished because they were just beyond brilliant. You could not pay to go to an astrology seminar and get information this good. And hey, came into my inbox for free because I asked my readers who have been studying this stuff for probably most of them as long as I have. All right, so we have a new moon, and you might say that the new moon is, activating the Uranus-Eris conjunction. So we get a kind of a proving moment of what this is about. No, this is the first new moon following a series of eclipses. So we had a solar eclipse at the last new moon, a lunar eclipse at the last full moon, and now this is the first lunation after all of the eclipses. So it gets a little bit of honorary eclipse gravitas for that reason. The next thing, which means transitional events, which means that there is the sensation of real movement, threshold, a watershed thing. You leave one area and you come to another. And one thing that you can see about this is that soon after this new moon aspect, here, let's get in there nice and close. The moon is right away later that morning going to make conjunctions to Eris, Uranus and Eris. It's going to go 4 hours later, it's going to be there, and then 4 hours after that, it's going to be there. So we're going to have that new moon day where there's not only a new moon, but there's a new moon with the moon conjunct Eris, and then the moon conjunct Uranus, then Eris, as distinct events as well. Then, over the following 3 to 4 days, the Sun will continue to make conjunctions, and will line up with Uranus 2 days later, and then with Eris 4 days later. It's very exciting. It's a lot of energy moving around. The other thing that distinguishes this is Pluto is in the picture. Pluto is at 17 Capricorn. The Sun and the Moon are at 18 Aries. That is called a square. When you have a cardinal sign to cardinal sign, for example, any one quadruplicity, that is a square, and this is a close square. And so what we have is a new moon that is activating our old, good, trusty friend, the Uranus-Pluto square, but it's also invoking the Uranus-Eris conjunction. So that's why I put these 5 bodies in this. We have Pluto, and then Sun, dyslexia, Sun, video dyslexia, Sun, Moon, Uranus, and Eris. So there's a lot of mojo in this new moon, okay? And it's evocative of a lot of generational astrology. By generational, I mean that the Uranus-Pluto square, which has been basically following us since 2011, is activated by this, and the Uranus-Eris conjunction, which I am now proposing has also been following us since 2011, are both activated. They're all kind of brought in as one big event, and that is on Thursday. So listen, look, feel, try to get a sensation of what's going on and what this is about. One thing astrology does is it makes you into a kind of novelist of reality, where you are going to become more observant and look for the orientation points where the seemingly celestial movements parallel the movements in the world. I don't go so far as to say that one is causing the other, but they certainly run in a very interesting, complex set of parallels, and there's quite a bit of synchronicity. And if you're a synchronicity freak, astrology is the game to play, because it's all one big kind of synchronicity game. All right, now let's look at the rest of the planets under that I've left out here. I'm going to stay calm. There's a lot of planets involved. You've heard of most of them, but get ready. This is what the chart really looks like. That's a lot of planets. Now, it's partly true. It's partly true that I use a lot of planets, but this is only a small fraction of the number of planets that I use. So these are just the ones I use in a normal, everyday kind of knock around chart. And as you can see, there's a whole heck of a bunch here in Pisces before we get to Aries, and then also I've added in Venus into early Aries. That's going to happen between the time I'm sitting here and the time that you watch this. And we've added Mercury into Taurus. That's going to change. That hasn't changed signs yet either. And then there's the part of fortune, which is a local point, and then Vesta. So look at all this, all concentrated in one part of the sky. So now what do you do with this? Well, you have to surf the waves, basically. And one of the reasons why it's good to be talking about this new moon now is that as of Monday morning, right around 8 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday the 4th of April, happy 116th birthday, Aunt Josie, my godmother and benefactor and person who believed in me wholeheartedly. The moon is exactly conjunct Nessus, a centaur, a planet of healing and transformation and strong emotions, but also a kind of a reminder to take responsibility for what you feel. And even if you only do it once the whole day, or a couple of times the whole day, notice when you can call back in some projection. Notice when you can take some added responsibility for what you're feeling, and let other people feel what they're feeling too. Let them have responsibility for what they feel, and you take responsibility for what you feel. No one is perfect at this, but we can practice. This is the important thing. We really can practice this, and this is a good time to practice. Then what's going to happen is Ms. Moon is going to basically, over the next 2.5 days, plunge all the way through Pisces here and make conjunctions to all of these points, one after the next. It'll conjoin Neptune Monday morning, and then it'll be Nessus, and then it'll be Neptune, and then the next day it'll get to the South Node, and then like a few hours later it'll get to Chiron, and then the next day it'll get to Ceres. And so there's a lot of stuff in Pisces. And what is so interesting about the sky right now is that it is a sky really made of fire and water, and the theme of fire and water is showing up all over the place because, for example, we're about to have Mars retrograde, which we're taking a break from this week in Planet Waves TV. Mars retrograde spanning a fire sign, Sagittarius, and a water sign, Scorpio. And then at the same time in the sky, we've got a whole boatload of planets in Pisces and a whole campsite of planets in fire sign Aries. And fortunately, we have Mercury right there in Taurus, kind of slowing things down and stabilizing them. But I don't recommend being stuck or playing any games being stuck. But keep in the flow. Use that Mercury in Taurus to keep a cool, creative head. Mercury in Taurus can have a lot going on in its mind, though. So this is one of those things where you take the ride, but then now you can see here, oopsie daisy, that this conjunction of the Sun and the Moon, which is square Pluto up here, and conjunct these two kind of monumentally important planets in a conjunction, is actually set in a much larger context. So the way that you work with all these planets is you basically take charge and you take them out, and then you put them back in, and then you put even more of them in. I use reams of planets to write the horoscope and to do these analysis. I don't usually talk about them all. It's just too many things to talk about. You don't need to talk about it. You need to be informed by them. And you take charge of your palette. You take charge of your color, and you pick which paintbrush is the appropriate paintbrush for the job. And sometimes it's even our drumstick from last week. All right, so today I'm recording this on Friday, and I'm about to embark on this project of the spring reading. 12 signs. I'm going to do it on video. Yay! Now I like video. Now me and video are friends. And I'm going to do some of it on audio too, and I will, in that reading, will cover all the major aspects, and then I personalize it by sign. If you're vaguely concerned that I'm not doing this with your birth chart, here is what I can say to you, is that there's many ways into the matrix of astrology, and the birth chart is only one of them. And what I find is that as time goes on, I need the birth chart less and less, but it's a handy thing to have. But without it, and using these tools and others, and usually just feeling, I can tell a pretty good story that will give you a highlight of the important themes associated with this epic astrology of the spring of 2016. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you to Kate Ryzenko for picking up the video editing duties of Planet Waves TV. Hi, Kate. Kate is in the Ukraine. She is Anatoly's daughter, who was super little when I met Anatoly, and now she's grown up and she's editing video for us. So go figure. Welcome. All right, that's all I have to say to you. I will be back with any luck on Tuesday evening with an edition of Planet Waves FM. I've got lots to say as usual, but thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. You know where to find me, efc@ericfrancis.com. Stay in touch.